Welcome to Tech Topics brought to you by Cybervenger. We help keep small businesses stay protected and compliant with cutting-edge cybersecurity and IT solutions.
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Andy, I'm the managing consultant for Cybervenger. And today we are going to be discussing how a small business can do business with the federal government. Now there's kind of two halves of this. If you are a generic small business, or if you're a small manufacturer doing business with the Department of Defense, the requirements and how-tos are a little different. A person manufacturing, say, a battery cable for an Abrams tank is going to have a few more hoops to jump through than a company selling staples or copy paper to the IRS. But the concept is the same, and we're just going to kind of wet your whistle a little of what the risks and opportunities are. Now, as I do this video, I'm going to start showing you about the problem. We're going to talk in detail about the, rather dry topic of complying with security standards for the federal government. But if you bear with me, and you get through the pain of all the scary stuff I'm going to talk about first, there is a lot of interesting opportunity, I think, and we'll talk about that too. So please stick around, work your way through the tough stuff, and I promise you there's going to be a great payoff at the end of it in this video. So without further ado, let's discuss the security standard NIST 800-171. That's specific to manufacturers dealing with what's called CUI. CUI stands for Controlled Unclassified Information. So if you're making a top secret missile or something or other, this isn't what we're talking about. This is something more innocuous. Back to the Abrams tank battery cable example. An Abrams tank needs a battery cable for its battery. I don't know anything about Abrams tanks per se, but it's a vehicle, right? It's got to need a battery. And this is pretty, common technology. The United States government, and the Department of Defense in particular, wants to keep its secrets safe from potential adversaries from other countries. So, Russia, China, North Korea, whoever. We don't want them to see our plans for how to build an Apache helicopter or a tank. But a battery cable? They don't know how long our battery cables are maybe, or what gauge steel or copper we use, but I'm pretty sure they know how to make a battery cable. Not exactly top secret. This is CUI. It's information that the federal government would give to you as a contractor to manufacture. It's not what's called COTS, commercial off the shelf. Yeah, commercial off the shelf. These acronyms are tough. I warned you it's going to be tough. There's a lot of different acronyms to learn doing business. There's DIB, Defense Industrial Base. There's DFAR. It goes on and on, so bear with me. I'll let you know. I'll clue in the critical ones here as we go along. So you got this technology that you got, and now you're making it for the Department of Defense. Maybe you are not making it directly for the Department of Defense. Maybe your company is actually making it for Boeing or Northrop Grumman or one of the large companies. Or maybe you're making it for another middleman. The supply chain goes far. The DIB, as they call it, Defense Industrial Base, has a lot of contractors. And particularly when you get down those small contractors, they've all actually had to comply with the NIST 800-171 standard for the better part of a decade now. The problem is the little guys didn't even know about it, and even the big guys were kind of lax for a while. There was a lot of resistance in the industry. I'll talk about why shortly. But now that the industry hasn't really rushed to adopt this thing, and in fact, a lot of cases, they flat out lied. There have been innumerable companies, particularly little ones, that said, yeah, we're doing that stuff. And they're not, at all. They're not even trying. And their goal is to just, better to ask forgiveness than permission. Wait until someone slaps a wrist and then we'll spend money. This is a bad approach. This is the approach that the Department of Defense is aware is happening, is now taking steps to stop. So now, not only do you have the standard of the things you have to do, it's 110 practices you're supposed to be doing regarding your data. And we'll talk about that a little more in a second. But since no one was actually doing it, now they have a certification program to prove that you're doing it. And that adds a whole nother layer of expense and complexity to the equation. So there's two things. There's NIST 800-171 and there's CMMC. So CMMC. And there's a standards body called the Cyber AB that now will certify you to one of three levels. So level 1 is good for this, level 2 is good for that, level 3 is, approaching top secret stuff. But it's all about how ready you are and how much you are actually practicing these things. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is actually in the standard, what you have to do. It is both a technical requirement and an administrative policy set. It's a suite of policies. Things like you have to change your password every so often. Things like every user that has access to this special CUI data, this controlled unclassified information, like a Abrams battery tank, Abrams tank battery cable, that has to be protected in a certain way. Furthermore, not everybody in the company should have access to this. Only those who need it to do the job. This is more policy. This isn't technical, right? You kind of understand the challenging here. It puts a lot of burden on the management team of the small business. You can't just call an IT company, write a check, and make the problem go away. You have to kind of change the way your business is working. One of the challenges I firsthand see in some of our companies is they have these kiosks attached to like CNC machines. If you're a manufacturer, you know what I'm talking about. These these computer-controlled machines that run a little drill bit around and carve the metal into the part you want. Well, it sits there and runs all day long, and different folks walk up and will change out the cooling oil or vacuum out the metal chips and all that stuff. You can have a team of 5 different people working on this thing. Technically, though, the kiosk is a computer, and you have one generic account logged into it. That's a no-no because of policy. How do you work around that? You may have a program that runs overnight. Well, they kick it off at late. The second shift kicks it off, walks away, goes home. Well, now what? Who's logged in? Who has access? So these are the kinds of policy decisions that bump heads with the way your current workflow works, and that's why it's so challenging. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, this sounds like a headache, and not like I do all this garbage, but I got to prove I'm doing it and pay people to come in and audit me? No thanks, I'm going to stick with the civilian market. I'm making car parts, and that may be your decision. In fact, it's probably a decision of a lot of people. Which brings me to the opportunity. So now we'll talk about why you want to get CMMC certified, because a lot of companies, I got to believe, and this is my personal opinion, this is my guess what's going to happen in the future. But if you think about it, I think you'll see that I'm making an intelligent guess here. I bet you half the small manufacturing companies out there currently serving the Department of Defense are going to get out in the next few years. I say the next few years because the certification is going to be required one federal contract at a time, and they're getting more and more. So I think there's something to the tune of like 2,000 contracts going out a year for defense space specifically. And, maybe this year 100 of them will require certification, and then 500, and then 1,000, and then eventually all of them over the next 5-year period. So that's good because it buys you some wiggle room, but not as much time as you might think. One of the challenges with CMMC, the certification process, is first, you got to be actually doing this. We talked about that. That's the practices. Then the certification. And there's money and time on both. It's going to take time for your company to be able to implement the practices, and then take more time to prove that you're doing them. You have to document them. You have to record them and show them to auditors, and it can't be a practice you just started doing. If you just started doing all the practices this month or last month, you'll fail the audit. They want to see you going back for over a year. So you have to get started now. Even if you don't want to get certified for the next year or two, you need to get started now. You need to make sure all these things are implemented. So I would say management should probably figure 18 months start to finish. If you're going in cold and you have no cybersecurity going on in your environment at all, and you want to comply with CMMC, get certified, and win these federal contracts and go after this, what I think is going to be a gold mine of business, plan 18 months out. Now, here's the other scary part. Back to scary stuff, things that make you not want to do this. Let's talk money. It's really difficult to plan and budget because, A, it's kind of new. The certification side is very new. In fact, just last year, they had 5 levels. Now they're down to 3. They keep changing their mind, so that's a little tricky. And there's a limit to how many. There's only so many certified auditors out there. And the certified auditor and the folks doing the IT work can't be the same company. So you have to have 2 different independent, unrelated organizations. In short, you can't have the fox guarding the hen house. It's kind of an obvious thing, right? So you have to have those 2 companies. And the rules are changing. And what are the costs? Everyone wants to know, how much is it going to cost me? And the problem is, it really depends on what technology you have. Can it be complied with? What if you have, for example, a line of business application that isn't operating in a way that's capable of being compliant with NIST? you may have to ditch that application and migrate to a whole new line of business, which means changing everything, porting your data over, spending money in that project. It's not even directly related. So you can see why it's kind of difficult to calculate what it's going to really cost. But everyone wants some kind of line in the sand, some kind of example data. So I do have some example pricing. I watched another video recently from a certification body, CA3PO. That's the kind of organization that does this certification. And they put a line in the sand to say, okay, we had a customer, because everyone wants to know, that had 50 users. And we've seen customers around that size are typically spending about $100,000 on the certification process. That's not the compliance process. What we do, we have registered practitioners registered with the Cyber AB body to help companies perform all the practices. We can get them ready. We can do the IT. We can coach on the policy, that kind of thing. We can help prepare for the audit. That is another bill. Likewise, for us, we had a 25-user company. Probably the course of about 2 years, they spent roughly $50,000 on that and getting ready. And they were already in decent shape. And they were in a fortunate position of they were growing a lot. So we were able to put the practices while they were small and grow into it. So they used to it. They didn't have to, they did to tear up a lot and redo. They will kind of do right in the first place. And that's what we do is at CyberVenture. We always do everything thinking about future compliance that you might have to deal with, thinking about cybersecurity from the beginning, from the drawing board. And you can see how that's advantageous here. It's very expensive if you had to rip it up and redo it. So that gives you an idea. So a 50-person company, I don't know, $50,000 to $100,000 to get ready, $100,000 to $150,000 to certify. You could easily be looking at a $250,000 effort. That's an intimidating number. That's a big number. But again, I go back to law of supply and demand. What happens when half the manufacturers quit? They say, no, I'm not doing that. And a lot will. Not just the money, but a lot of them won't want to deal with the policy changes. They don't want to adjust their business. They like making things the way they work. They don't have to argue with their management team. There's going to be pushback in an organization. Another thing that you have to do is you have to train your entire staff on cybersecurity. Now, not like an IT guy would be, but phishing scams. You don't want your folks falling for phishing scams and sending COI where they shouldn't, or getting infected with a virus or ransomware and whatnot. So training is involved. Security at the building level, you have to have cameras, you have to have alarms, you have to have all kinds of things like that you didn't before. You have to properly label any printed papers that are CUI. You have to secure wireless. You have to have two-factor authentication if you're using remote access, as well as other encryption standards you have to follow. It's big stuff. So again, think of all those people going, I'm not doing that, and disappearing. What happens when your supply disappears and your demand stays the same? Prices go up. Here's where that gets interesting, though. The Cyber AB promised the Department of Defense that their cybersecurity efforts wouldn't cost them a dime. In fact, when I was taking my registered practitioner test, when they first came out, they had that in there. What can you charge the Department of Defense for the cybersecurity efforts? Zero. It's a big fat zero. They really want to make sure the politicians think they're getting something for nothing. I think this is going to happen. This is my own personal prediction. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just guessing here. But I think when the supply of manufacturers gets halved because half of them quit, and the remaining folks spent a ton of money, they're going to double their prices. Now, you can't double your prices only for federal contracts. You could set whatever price you want, but you have to treat the federal government the exact same way as you treat everybody else. What's to stop people from doubling their prices for the civilian market? Just because they won't have any business doesn't mean anything. I mean, maybe you're doing 50% civilian and 50% DOD. Well, you'll keep trying to charge your old civilian customers and they'll just leave. And then your Department of Defense customers grow a huge, massive amount. That's what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see a split in the manufacturing environment. I think you're going to see small businesses either going to be Department of Defense only, at least in reality, maybe not on paper, because again, they're not supposed to charge the Department of Defense. And then you're going to see folks that just stick with civilian markets and they skip all of that. And unfortunately, they'll be less cyber secure. There isn't an actual real benefit to following these practices. They do, in fact, make you more secure. Some of it's a bit security theater and unnecessary, but a lot of it's good practices you kind of should be doing anyway. Nobody wants ransomware. Nobody wants their business shut down. So that's all. If you put all that together, I really think there's a tremendous opportunity for manufacturing businesses, in particular with the Department of Defense. But again, I want to reiterate what I said earlier. Any business, any small business, I mean large business too, but I think that they're already on top of this. But the small businesses, again, if you're selling, say, staples to the IRS, that's not Department of Defense, that's not, military equipment. That's just staples for the IRS or copy paper in the IRS. You still got to be level 1 certified. You have to pay auditors to come into your business, poke through all your business and nose around through there, make sure that you're doing everything in compliance to a certain level in order to keep doing business. So the market opportunity across the board is massive. Think of how much money the federal government, the entirety of the federal government spends every year. Think how much they take in of our taxes. All of our tax dollars get spent on something, and plus all the debt and all the money that they borrow. It's a massive market to go after. If you're poised to handle it, this could be a huge opportunity. That's just all I want to talk about today. I want to give you an idea of the challenges, what's involved in getting it, what the opportunity is. Hopefully you're as excited about this as I am. I know we at CyberVenture are putting a lot of our training, effort, and energy into preparing to help our customers to get CMMC certified. Can't guarantee, of course, but we can be really good partners and work with you hand in hand to make sure that you're in the best possible position to pass your certification test and get that certification and seize this tremendous opportunity. So I hope you stay tuned. We're going to have more videos and subtopics on this. We'll talk a little bit, sometimes focused on the lighter side, like just COTS products, commercially off the shelf, and more acronyms. They got to love the government. And then more specifically, manufacturing for the Department of Defense is a little stricter. So we'll talk about both topics and all kinds of things like that in the future. If you do have any topics, questions, or topics you'd like to see us do a video on, please put it in the comments below. We'd love to get a chat going. We're happy to help people for free in our comment section where we can, first come, first basis as we can respond. And that'll give us ideas for future videos as well. And I'll hope to talk to you then. Again, I'm Andy with CyberVenture. Really appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to leave a like if you feel so inclined. And we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has provided valuable information to you. Be sure to share this video with other small business owners to spread the word about the importance of cybersecurity. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you want more information about cybersecurity, visit us at www.cyberventure.com.